So today's episode is inspired by Jacob. Shout out to our hometown, San Jacinto. He asked us, how do you guys stay consistent and how to keep your momentum of your business on a high? And I think that that is a great question because if you know anything about business, it's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon.
Yeah.
So that brings us to a topic that I think you wanted to talk to us about, dreaming big and growing smart.
Yeah. And I think I do a lot of the dreaming and you do a lot of the smart growth.
And that's why we're a great fit.
Yes, exactly.
Let's talk about dreaming big. What does it mean to you to dream big? Because it's something that did not start a couple of years ago. You've always been a dreamer. You're ever since you were little, right?
Yeah.
The things that we would invent, the things that we would do in our childhood, you were always a dreamer. And how do you feel like that's applied to where we're at now?
I think with dreaming big, you can't just stay there. You have to try to put actions into play or else it'll always stay a dream. So I think for me, I'll get these like, oh, it'd be cool. We could do that, you know?
Yeah.
And as a child, I've just always thought, oh, and I remember growing up, you know, it's like, oh, it'd be cool to build a spaceship. And we and I built, you know, you helped me build it out of a cardboard box. And I drew crayon, like with crayon, I drew like the control panel. And it's so cool. Like as a child, you have that imagination, right? But then you kind of grow up and you realize, oh, well, things aren't always as they seem. Yeah. But I feel like, you know, I've always had that dream big spirit. And it's been amazing to see just with the smallest things, like with my freelance journey, right? If there's a certain image that I see in my head, recreating that. And sometimes it turns out to be like what I expected, or sometimes it doesn't. But a lot of the times it turns out becoming something that, whoa, I was going one direction, and then it led me to something like beautiful and different.
One thing kind of to put a pause on it and say, I admire your ability to always lean into your creativity. Like even choosing to go to school. I remember our parents weren't necessarily, you know, crazy about you going into school or college because it's so expensive for art. Yeah. And you're like, I'm going to do it. Like, I really don't know what I'm going to do after this, but that's what I'm going to do. And it's crazy to think if you wouldn't have taken that leap of faith back then, we would not be where we're at with the business right now. So, you know, your creativity, it goes beyond just what you did. Because what you started off with was like drawing. and you guys maybe don't know this, but this girl was good at drawing, like super. She's still good. She just doesn't do it anymore.
Yeah, I don't try.
But it developed into that medium, into photo, video, graphic. You went to school for graphic design.
I technically went. So in high school, I loved drawing. And, you know, I actually won a few competitions during high school for my drawings. But I was like, this isn't going to take me anywhere. At least I didn't know at the time an artist that made it, you know, with just physical drawing. Nowadays, you have Instagram and things. And I feel like if I had that guidance, maybe. But I thought, well, we have computers, so the closest thing to it is probably illustration or graphic design.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I felt like, you know, graphic design is the safe, like, medium to stay in art somehow. Yeah. So I decided to take that route, but I also wanted to have faith incorporated into that. So that's why I decided to go with Biola. Yeah. And then in class, we would take different mediums. Like I still did drawing. I actually, my degree is a Bachelor in Fine Arts, but it's actually split. Like the emphasis. Is split, and it's what's called interdisciplinary, which means you could choose two of those topics. So I chose half graphic design and half drawing. Yeah. Yeah.
This is news to me too.
Yeah. So technically it's like split between drawing and graphic design, which is kind of like what I wanted to incorporate for my senior show and stuff, with the play of typography and stuff. During those art classes, you had to take photo. You kind of did 3D design, which is like sculpture type of design. So you got to choose and experiment with those different mediums. But when I was doing design, I was like, I need to pull a lot of photos to make my design.
Yeah.
So graphic design and photo go hand in hand. I think it was like early 2011 from 2014 is when I went to college. I didn't know much about like free stock photos or things like that. So I was like, oh, I'll just take the photos myself. So that's when I invested into a small camera. Yeah, the rest is history. I love that thing.
That's how it started, and look what it's developing.
Yeah, from drawing to graphic design to photo, and then it landed me on video.
Yeah.
But I love them all. I think with video, you can incorporate a lot more, though. You could combine kind of like all of them.
Yeah. I think it's funny that I was actually the first one to get photography classes.
Oh, yeah. No, we could throw it back all the way to video. You were the first one to take a video class in middle school.
But yeah, I did the videography stuff. Dang. I think I got like videographer or video production something of the year. But dang, yeah, that's crazy. I know. Full circle.
Yeah.
But no, kind of tying back to what you were saying, I think it was so important though for you to choose what you chose and you stuck to it. Right? If you have a dream, you have to pursue it just like relentlessly, right? It doesn't matter what anybody says. But of course, it has to be realistic. I love soccer, but unfortunately, I've given up on that dream of like being professional. There's probably people out there that are like, oh, you can do it. You can still. Yes, but I got to be realistic. You know, I'm 28, almost 29, the longevity of a career of soccer. I could do it. I possibly could do it.
Yeah.
But at this point, is it worth it?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Not for me, anyways. I loved it. I played collegiate level and my love kind of died with it there. But now it's a matter of how do you get your dreams and what you're passionate about and make it into something that you can do long term. And I believe that that's what we're doing with this, right? We're finding mediums that we're good at. We're finding things that we're not good at. We're seeing what we can do and how we can scale it at a healthy pace, right? Because if you try to take on everything at once, you're going to end up losing it all.
Yeah.
So it's so important to steward the talents that you have and be sure that you know who you are and know who you aren't.
So with that being said, I'm a dreamer. You're more of the realistic. So a lot of the times you're pulling me down to reality. And, you know, like you said, like we're a good match. But people who don't have a partner or who are in this alone, how do they balance? Like, what if they're the dreamer or what if they're the too realistic, one? And so we just want to provide you guys with the 5 things that kind of have helped us stay balanced with that. So the first one is setting clear and achievable goals. And how do you do that? For me or for us, again, I'm the big dreamer and you're kind of like, whoa, like you're a numbers guy. I'm more of like, yeah, let's do it and we'll figure it out later. And unfortunately, on my freelance journey, that cost me. But partnering with you, it's helped me realize like, do I really need that? Dreaming isn't bad, but when you set clear goals, it kind of helps you guide those steps and that pathway to actually reach it and actually make it happen.
Yeah, I think a perfect example of that, right, is it used to be in the beginning where you'd see something, you'd be like, oh, I want that new drone, or I want that new laptop, or I want whatever. And I'd be like, listen, I'm not saying we can't get it, but let's do numbers. Is the value we're going to get from this going to bring us more work? Is it going to be worth paying itself off? Or is it going to be doing the same thing for a little bit better quality? Like it doesn't justify the price at this point.
Yeah.
And I know in the beginning you hated that. You're like,
you killing my dreams, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But those are the decisions you need to make where you prioritize in a business. Like you can have it, right? But instead of getting all the equipment you want right now, or instead of getting the studio space you want right now, like how can I put myself in a plan where it's like, okay, once I hit these goals, then let's go after that.
Yeah. I think a good example of that is the studio, right? Mm-hmm. I kept bugging you like, Daniel, let's get a studio. And for the longest time, you're like, no, we don't need a studio. Yeah. Then the opportunity came to where we were able to rent, or there was a space available. Mm-hmm. We had to then look at our finances. Okay, can we pay for this even if people don't rent it out?
Yeah.
Is it justifiable with the work and the content that we're creating to make it worth it, the expense, right? So what would you say kind of like helped us set those realistic goals and take action?
I remember you sent me a YouTube video that showed what the cost would be. And my biggest thing is, what is the money up front that you would have to have? And to be completely transparent, I think it was like $15,000.
Yeah.
We needed that. And then I broke it down by like, okay, if we rented it out, how many hours would we have to rent this out? How many things do we have to get in motion for us to make our money back? And then also understanding how long of a lease do we need to have to make all that money back? And our numbers are just projections because, right, we can say we're going to rent this out at least this amount of time or whatever. I think you don't learn things until you're in it.
Yeah.
And once we learned, it's like what kills us is the parking situation, the location.
Yeah.
We're right next to the Angel Stadium, so that's also hindered us in our growth. However, not everything just goes down to numbers because although money-wise, we still haven't quite broke even with the studio, the amount of clients and the amount of opportunities we've gotten because of the studio is valuable to the money that we've invested into this. So it's not always just about the numbers, but doesn't make sense. And up until this point, I think it's something that it's like, okay, it's making sense for us.
Yeah.
But the moment it doesn't make sense, we have to be able to willing to let go of it for the business sake.
Yeah.
And that leads us to the second point, right? Which is staying adaptable. One of the most important things in business is like, if you're an entrepreneur, more than likely you got problems with pride. Right? Because you're like, I know I can do it. I know I can do it. I can push myself through. I can push whatever. I can get over that mountain, that obstacle. Or sometimes, it's just a matter of like things happen last minute and you don't know what to do. And you're just like, oh, I got to figure it out. Being an entrepreneur, the most important thing that you need to be is willing and adaptable for whatever comes your way. Because there's going to be things that it's like, I would not have even thought that would happen. Now, how do I fix that? How do I change that?
Yeah.
And being adaptable, 50% of it is making the solution. The other 50% of it is where's your headspace when you're at with that. If you're panicking, if you're like, oh my gosh, everything's coming down, this life's not fit for you.
Yeah, you won't be able to flow.
You won't be able to, right? And people sense that, right? If you're always like on edge and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this. And it's like, bro, relax. You just forgot your SD card.
Yeah.
Like.
Wow, that's kind of a big deal.
It is. But so even that,
yeah,
right? Even that. If you're like, dang, I messed up. Okay, whatever. What's your solution? Are you the type of person that's going to go like, all right, what's the closest store? How can I go find that? How can I get that replaced?
Yeah.
I can go on ShareGrid and get something to like help me out. Or are you just going to give up and be like, hey, I'm sorry, I have to reschedule a shoot?
But even that, right? As a creative, like that would be your worst nightmare. To have to tell the client, I was not able to deliver, but hey, client, like, let me make it up to you. It was my mistake. Let me do something, for the inconvenience of this.
Yeah, I think even worse than that is a corrupted file.
Oh,
that's
I still have. Oh,
that's the worst because you did your job, you had everything, and then you will do everything in your power. I remember we paid like almost like $1,000 to try to like save some footage.
Yeah,
and it didn't work out. We saved some of it, but not all of it. And that's the thing. How do you move forward with that?
Yeah.
But that's adaptability. That's part of the business. That's part of doing it. You're not going to get everything right. There's going to be things you do wrong. But the importance here is always trying to make things right. You need to have integrity in this business. And whatever you do outside of business, just how you carry yourself. How can you have integrity or how can you show character of like, hey, I know I was supposed to deliver X, Y, and Z. I didn't. Let me make it up to you.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will be like, hey, I don't trust you. I want my money back. And you got to take that on the chin.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, I'm sorry. How can I move forward so I don't do this again to another client?
Yeah.
And I think you've learned that because there's a reason that you have a invoice that needs to be paid before you meet with somebody. There's a reason you have extra SD cards. There's a reason you have extra batteries. There's a reason why you have all the equipment that you have.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was trial and error. And I think for the most part, you're shooting, you've gotten down. Like what can you get away with and what can you not?
Yeah.
But this all goes back to adaptability, right? If something were to go bad now, I think you know how to move forward with this.
Even in shooting itself, you have to learn how to adapt on the spot.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like, oh shoot, I forgot this. How do I, or oh shoot, I thought I only brought this lens for this kind of environment. And it's like, well, just bring it all sometimes,
My best advice to you is even if you don't know what you're doing, act like you do, right? Yeah. Because we've had points with clients where they ask us, hey, do you know how to do this? Yeah, I know how to do it. I'll figure it out. Recently, we did a live event where I'm like, figure it out. Like,
yeah, that was all you because I've done live events and I am terrified. And I did it for church for the longest, but I was like, nope, never again. And then you took it on, and yeah,
it was kind of fun.
Yeah,
it was kind of fun.
Speaking of trial and error, I think the more years that we've been in the industry, the more we realize value is so important. And so, how are we focusing on creating that value for clients? One of the biggest values that you provide for a client is obviously customer service, right? Just having them feel like you are listening, like you do care. So, focusing on providing value for the client, what does that look like? Would you say?
I think you need to understand, why is this client coming to you? What problem is it that they're looking for you to solve? At first, we thought it was just content creation. But what does it matter if your business looks pretty if it's not generating more business? And I think that's where we've gotten to the point where, like, how do we partner with these businesses to create value, to generate leads,
Yeah.
to generate more traffic, to generate more people actually end users? And that's something that allowed us to really put ourselves in a position of creating more value for the business owner. Of course, we're good at creating content, but how do you get good at creating content that converts? How are you good at creating content that allows people to click on your website, to click on your profile, and whatever it may be? The interesting thing about that is we stop focusing on getting followers as a metric of success and partnering with them is like, how can we get people to your website to fill out the forms?
Yeah, because ultimately business is what matters.
Exactly. Like if you ask somebody, would you rather have 1,000 followers or 100 people who are actually interested in your business? Any business owner is going to say the forms, I want that. That matters more to me. The followers will come with time, right?
Yeah.
With the community building and all that stuff. But the value, I think, comes in one, creating content that people like to see, two, creating leads for people, and then three, building a community around your personality, which, that's why I'm not too worried about this AI stuff, because AI will never be able to create a value to a person where it's like, hey, this is custom fit to you. This is tailored to your business. This is tailored to a personality that you want. And that takes time. And that's why a lot of the businesses that we work with, or I would say all the businesses that we work with, are long-term partnerships. We work with them in mind of saying like, hey, we're setting this up this month, next month, and as the months go, we want to build from that.
Yeah.
And that's creating value for the client.
I think, and someone who's not necessarily in our industry, but wants to also create that value for a client, I would say focus on the ways that you provide good customer service, just tending to their needs. Like you said in the beginning, what are they coming to me for? And focusing on solving that problem. And that's where the value really comes from.
Part of also investing in value is investing in continuous learning, right? Investing in yourself. Carol, you are an amazing shooter, but if you were to stop wanting to learn, that's where it would end. Right?
Yeah.
There's new technologies.
And that's actually not just shooting, design, in any craft, like editing, photo. Like there's just, you got to keep up with the technology. You got to keep up with the softwares, and you got to keep up with the trends too.
Yeah. And even beyond our shooting content, your business model, right? Half of the stuff we pass to each other or send to each other on Instagram is like funny stuff. And then the other half is just like, oh, look at this software that might help us. Look at the stuff that might help us get into a better position, or that we can cut time, or we can cut costs, or do all these things. It is so important that you learn, like, what is it in your industry and what is it about you that'll allow you to get to that next level. I know one thing I love doing is like, and I know we both do, looking at business success stories, right? Like, well, why did Walt Disney get Walt Disney?
Yeah,
why did he go to Anaheim? Why did he go to Orlando? How was he able to create an empire that started off with just a cartoon that then became, a park? Right?
I love that. I love looking at business owners that from an idea and dreaming big actually made it happen.
Correct. And that's inspiring, because you need to find things. It's like, okay, how do I learn to do that? Right. Like small little tidbit. I saw this on YouTube the other day, but Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, what he does is, instead of having everybody in the meeting go and, read a memoir or read a 1-page memo and then come and get ready, he's like, these people are too busy to do that. I know that they won't. So what he does is he comes and he gets everybody in the business, and the first 30 minutes are spent with everybody just spending that time there, reading through it. And that way they can have a good conversation as it comes. Instead of half the people lying about it, saying that they know what they're talking about and all these things. It's like, hey, we cut out this time. Let's spend 30 minutes going over it and another 30 minutes actually getting into the thing.
It's less of homework and more of bonding.
Correct. But those are small things that it's like, how do you learn, right? And it's not learning about the industry also, but it's like, learn what works best for you.
In reality, learning to be more efficient is what's key, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to be able to not just be good at what you do, but make sure you're doing it in an efficient manner. I was thinking about kind of random. I don't know if this is going to go on there or not, but if a barber knew how to give you a good fade in 10 minutes, the same as one that does it in 50 minutes, Who would not go to that?
Yeah.
I would even go as far as saying I would pay a little bit more for that.
Really?
If I can get in and out of there in 10 minutes instead of spending an hour,
Well, that's because you value time right now more than money.
that's correct.
So I think a college student would be like, nah.
I'll stay there 2 hours if it's half the
Yeah.
price. But from a barber standpoint, if I can get a mean fade in 10 minutes instead of 50, which there's no barber I think out there that can do that, at least not at that level that I know of. If you could do that, you're doing 5 haircuts and the time that you would do one.
Yeah.
But you have to master your craft. I did see something that showed that instead of 50-minute haircuts, do 40-minute haircuts. And that allows you to have one extra haircut at the end of the day.
And that kind of ties into just adaptability, right? As well. And, you know, you mentioned Ford, how they were 10 times faster, or the assembly line, it was efficient. And they built the cars way quicker. So yeah, learning ways to just be efficient as possible. And then I think one of the most important parts for why we stay balanced in dreaming big and growing smart is having that support system. Our family is big. They're always supportive, but also like friends or mentors that actually challenge you in the way of thinking. I know you challenge me in my dreaming, but would you say you have someone who challenges you with growing smart? I think for you, it's books, huh?
Yeah, I love reading books. No, I do have people that I look up to, like their business. Like, there's people who maybe aren't Jeff Bezos, they're not Mark Cubans, they're not these like crazy entrepreneurs, but like I look at Dad, right?
Yeah.
The way he built the business empire, like it's like, dude, you did this. You spent 20 years being a truck driver, then you became a broker, and now you're sending like, you know, loads and stuff like this. And it's like, okay, I admire you because I literally grew up watching you and how much you struggle for money. And now you're at a point where, shout out to you, Pops, your hard work's paying off.
Yeah.
But I have like friends who do certain things. Where I'm like, dang, that's cool. Like, you know, Joey, who has his cams, who he can make money with like leveraging the network of coaching and stuff. And I'm like, that's so cool that you can leverage the people that you know and connect it all together. There's people at church that we go with that I admire their business model and what they do.
Yeah.
So there's little pockets of people where I'm like, how do you do that? Like, how is it that you're getting at that? And I feel like I learned from that. I would say you inspire me in dreaming, right? I feel like half the times when we have meetings, it's like, how do we get to that next level? And the first thing that we start off with is like, bro, I want to be this or that, or I want to get to this point. And without dreams, I don't feel like there's a purpose in you doing this.
Yeah.
We're putting in the work right now to be able to make sure that we have generational change, right? Dad's already started the work for us. We're doing it ourselves. And we're hoping to give our kids, you know, even better opportunities than we were able to have.
Yeah.
But it starts with like, what are the decisions we're making today and what are we willing to sacrifice, right? You do unfortunately have to sacrifice some of your dreams.
Yeah.
But that doesn't
short term.
Short term, correct.
Yeah.
You can make any dream possible, but I urge you to ask yourself, is it really what you want? Or is it just the idea of it that you want? Because again, going back to the soccer player, right? I'm like, bro, I would love to play at Real Madrid. I would love to be with these players.
Well, what does that take?
Exactly. The sacrifice, because we've worked with an NBA player. And I feel like what it took for him to get to that point was a lot of sacrifice.
Oh yeah. And hours, years that people don't realize. People only notice the fame, the money, but it's like, man, the admiration of just grinding day in and day out. People don't see that.
No. And I think one of my inspirations is Cristiano Ronaldo. The amount of work that man puts in at his age, it's insane. Like, I don't know of any athlete that puts in the amount of work that he does and has longevity that he does. So essentially, it's super important for you to dream big, right? And it's also important for you to grow smart. So have dreams, but have them with achievable goals.
Yeah.
The 5 things that we look back at is set clear, achievable goals.
Yeah.
Stay adaptable.
Focus on creating value.
Yeah. Invest in continuous learning.
And really your community. Having that support system. So there you have it, guys. These are basically the 5 things that have helped us stay balanced with dreaming big as well as like growing smart. I would say there have been a few hiccups to where we're like, we probably shouldn't have done that. But hey, you live and you learn. The good thing is we're still standing. Praise the Lord. This far. Yeah. So These 5 things have really helped us a lot. And we hope that this helps you guys on your journey, whether it be entrepreneurship or you're looking to make that jump sometime in the future. But please comment, like, let us know, or even DM us to see what you'd like to continue seeing on our podcast, or if it's even helpful information.
Yeah, whatever you guys are taking from this, if there's something you want to ask us or you'd like to know, we're all ears.
Yes. All right.
We'll see you guys next month.
See ya.